Hey all, Ewing here, and we're going to talk about land contracts in this video. Particularly what to do if a borrower stops paying when you own a land contract or a contract for deed. Okay, so contract for deed and land contract, they're used interchangeably, at least in this video. So they mean the same thing. But basically what a contract for deed is, it's very similar to a mortgage note, except that when someone is trying to buy a piece of property, they don't get titled ownership in a contract for deed until they've paid back the entire balance to the seller or whoever owns the land contract. Okay, so let's say I buy a land contract from another investor. Now that borrower owes me the balance of the land contract, just like a mortgage. Okay, but in this case, I own the property still. They get to use it and live in the property, and they are paying monthly payments to me with interest until they've paid off the entire balance of the land contract. Okay, so the title stays in my name. They get to use it, and they make monthly payments to me. So that part's similar in a sense of owning a mortgage note because I'm collecting principal and interest from the borrower. But if I own a land contract, I also have the deed to the property until the borrower has paid off the entire balance. And then the deed gets transferred to the borrower once they've paid it off completely. Okay, so that's the main difference, is titled ownership when the borrower gets ownership to the property. Okay, but they still get to use it as if they own it. They get to live in it. Okay, so the main differences though are what to do when a borrower stops paying in a land contract or contract for deed. And there's actually two different ways that you can handle that situation depending on, and again, it varies state by state, but depending on how long that borrower has been paying on the land contract, you can do something that's called a land contract or contract for deed forfeiture, where they're going to forfeit their, their position in the land contract if they stop paying. Okay, so typically this is a scenario where they've only been in the contract for a few years and they haven't paid much of the balance down. Okay, so if it's a fairly new contract for deed and the borrower stops paying, you can go through this forfeiture process, which is going to be a little cheaper. You still typically need an attorney to help you, but it's going to be a faster process and it's going to be a cheaper process than a foreclosure. Okay, so it'll save you a couple thousand. And you can do it quicker, and then you may have to evict them out of the property, which could take some time as well and have some costs. But in general, it's a faster scenario and it's a cheaper scenario, and the title would stay in your name. And once they forfeit that land contract, you're already on title, so now you can do whatever you want with the property. It's your property again. You can sell it, you can fix and flip it, you could owner finance it, you can do whatever you want, put a tenant in. Okay, so that's a forfeiture. Now, some states won't allow you to forfeit, or if the borrower has been paying for a long period of time and they've paid a significant amount down on the balance of the contract for deed, like in Ohio, for example, if they've paid more than 20% of the principal balance down, or they've been in it longer than 5 years in the land contract, then you cannot forfeit. You have to actually go through the entire foreclosure process. Okay. And in that case, it's likely going to take a longer time. It's going to take more months, and it's going to cost you a bit more. And in some states, you're going to have to go through a judicial process to foreclose, just like you would if you own a mortgage note. Okay. So when you're looking at buying contract for deeds, take a look at how new the contract is. If it's relatively new and the borrowers are not paying, you can probably get out with a forfeiture. It's going to be cheaper and you'll be able to take ownership of the property right away or fairly quickly. If they've been in there for numerous years and then stop paying and they've paid a significant amount of the balance down, then you got to look at foreclosing. Okay. Now, my last bit of advice is, from what I've been looking at, every state has different rules for land contract foreclosures and forfeitures. So Ohio is different than Michigan, which is different than Indiana, which is different than Pennsylvania, etc. And I've been emailing attorneys this whole week because I've got a tape of land contracts that I'm bidding on, just so I can be very clear on what to expect for these ones that are non-performing. So if you're looking at a contract for deed or a land contract, make sure you reach out to an attorney that handles foreclosures and knows something about land contracts in that state. They'll be able to tell you what the costs are, what the steps are, and how long that'll take. And that way you can prepare, set your bids accordingly based on the cost and the timeline and what's going to be needed, either if you're going to forfeit with that borrower or foreclose on them. Okay, so hope that's helpful. Always great to consult an attorney whenever you're doing any kind of real estate or note investing, and just educate yourself, and that way you won't make mistakes.